What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Shug Nasty from Shug Earth Media, and today we are discussing Life is Strange 2. Now, I've been doing reviews of the comics on this channel. You guys know I'm a big fan of the original Life is Strange and also the prequel. Now, I had my disappointments about Life is Strange 2, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Now, I wrote an article about this for Exclusively Games, which was a former video game website. It no longer exists, so I figured why not make a video about it and just show you guys what I think. So, why I like Life is Strange so much is that the characters had a great deal of nuance. It almost every character, even secondary and tertiary characters, had an arc where at the beginning you perceive them one way, and then as the game goes along, you learn more things about them and learn that your understanding of them at the beginning was very superficial, and it had this theme of people's internal lives are imperceptible to outsiders, especially on first glance. And I really like that message. I think it's very powerful, and it really gave this nuance to the performances that I really appreciated. Now, I found the sequel to be lacking in these qualities. So whereas the first game took several episodes for us to really fall in love with Max and Chloe and to see things from their perspective and understand what makes them tick, this second game really expected all that to happen in the course of 20 minutes. And after being introduced to them and their father and all that in seriously 20 minutes, then there's supposed to be this big emotional impact when their family is torn apart. And it's like, I just learned these characters' names. Like, it's not in films like Up, where we had that amazing opening sequence, this really emotional thing. It was like we went on the full journey of the guy's life, and we see the beginning, middle, and end. But in this case, it's really just a flash in the pan moment, and we barely got to know these characters, and now the father's dead, and they're on the road. And it felt very contrived, and there was no arc or nuance. The father is just this positive figure, and pretty much every character that you see in the game is either wholly good or wholly bad. There's very little nuance in this sequel. The two main characters are the only exception to that. Their relationship builds over the course of the game, and how you make decisions impacts how Daniel, the young child, reacts to various situations, and I appreciate that part. But each story is so episodic that we don't really get to see a beginning, middle, and end. It really just feels like every episode we're introduced to some characters, and then we live with them for a little bit, and then it builds to a climax, and then we're just on the road again, and we never see those characters again. And that's every single episode is self-contained in such a way that there's no room for any big revelation. There's no room for any nuance as far as understanding the characters, or there isn't any of that perception at the beginning that it changes at the end, how there was in the first game. So it really, all the characters, again, either wholly good or wholly bad, and they have very little consequence on the story overall. Yeah, in episode 1, there's either everybody they encounter is either a racist, or it's the journalist guy trying to help them, and he's wholly good, and even he gives them terrible advice, in my opinion. I mean, I don't really know that telling these kids they should be on the run is that great of an idea, especially because he doesn't know about the superpower thing, and they left in very strange circumstances, and it would look like to an outsider that something fishy happened there. So it feels like they're more interested in their message and what they want the audience to think, instead of portraying nuanced, meaningful characters. It's really a missed opportunity. So in the first Life is Strange, every character had flaws and had depth to them, and was neither wholly good or wholly bad, but was an imperfect human that had nuance to them. In this game, we have cartoonish villains who don't speak like real people. I mean, they get kidnapped by a guy who's racist in the first episode, and really, I don't think that they really needed to press on the racism angle for that storyline to work. I think it would have made more sense if the guy just thought that they were murderers because they're on the run after a police officer turned up dead. So I think it would have made more sense for him to be like, oh, you guys are murderers and stuff, rather than to really press on the race thing so much. But, again, they're more interested in what particular issues that they're talking about. And that's all fine, but really it just felt like, oh, we need conflict right now. Let's add a racist character. I mean, they did this multiple times, and after a while, it's just like, okay, when's the racism coming in? And, and not that doesn't exist or anything. It just, like, it really felt kind of contrived, and these cartoonish villains with no depth to them whatsoever. And instead of, like, the villains in the first game that we had Jefferson, who you thought was a cool guy at the beginning, and then he turns out to be this total sociopathic piece of crap at the end. And even the character who shoots Chloe in the first episode, whose name is escaping me right now, but I'm going to keep going anyway, he turned out to be somewhat sympathetic in the sense that Jefferson took advantage of him for his sick habit of kidnapping women for photography. And weird. And yeah, so he's a bad guy, and it made us like almost feel bad for Nathan. That is it, Nathan? I don't know. I'm gonna have to correct myself in editing, but yeah. So we had villains that were nuanced and interesting in Life is Strange 1, whereas in Life is Strange 2 we just have very cartoonish and simplistic characters, and we have a bunch of allied characters that are always willing to help, and there's no nuance to them either. So each of the episodes had some compelling dramatic moments, especially towards the end. I mean, we had some great climaxes. In the first episode, we had Daniel learning about the father's death in a news report, and then he has this emotional outburst. And to me, that just kind of fell flat because the emotional impact for the audience should have been there at the beginning. And again, like how I said, they wanted us to fall in love with these characters in 20 minutes, and it just doesn't really work like that. So having the delayed reaction at the end didn't really do the story any favors, in my opinion. Yeah, at the end, there's no mystery, there's nothing being built toward. Each episode is wholly independent, practically, and while there's some intriguing storylines, like I enjoyed the cult stuff in episode 4, it really gave me this empty feeling at the end of every episode, like, what is the point of this? What are we leading towards? Every episode of Life is Strange 1 tied into the next, and it felt like one continuous story. This game felt like a bus ride with a bunch of stops, and it just kept stopping and going every time we finally got the story moving and an interesting climax and intriguing drama. It just immediately picked up somewhere else later on, and it lost all of that momentum, and it's just really felt like it wasn't that interesting. So yeah, the 5th episode of Life is Strange 1 really turned everything we thought we knew on its head, and it was a shocking, powerful conclusion. I wish there was an epilogue. We've discussed that before, that explained a little bit more about what happened after, because just the very ending felt a little rushed, but everything leading up to that, the amazing, thrilling stuff with Max in the dark room and all of that was very compelling. Now, there wasn't really anything equivalent to that. I mean, there's this MacGuffin the whole time of them trying to get to Mexico. It had no real significance to the story, so it was just an excuse to keep them on the road. And that would have been fine if the stories along the way were interesting enough to warrant that. But again, we were dropped into an area. We learn about the characters, and they're not nuanced or very interesting. There's very little conflict between them. and then it builds up to a climax, a very arbitrary climax, and then it's just, we're gone again. So yeah, that's why it didn't really work for me. Let me know if you guys agree in the comments down below, and smash like and subscribe if you want to see more. And that's all for today, folks. Peace out, everybody.